Today on Alex and Autos, we are out here taking a look at the 2016 Kia Optima. Now you may recall I had a first drive video on the Optima when I had a few hours to spend with it in Aspen, Colorado. But this time I've had a full week with this at home. You may recall that in my first drive video of the Optima, I was a little bit torn as to whether I liked this or the 2016 Accord the best in this particular segment. Since then, I've had both the 2016 Accord and this 2016 Optima on my own turf, and I think that the Optima actually wins the award. Now, in general, bold and polarizing are not assets in this particular segment, so I think that the Kia Optima has definitely gone for the right look in this segment, but not necessarily the right look for me. It is very attractive, but it's just a little bit sedate. Now, you'll notice right here in the center we have this black portion. That's because our model does have the full speed range adaptive cruise control system. The mid-size sedan segment is an interesting one because this segment is defined by trying to be everything for everyone. The mid-size sedan segment is incredibly competitive. The price tags on all of the competition range from around $22,000 to right around $35,000 or so, with very few exceptions. And in terms of value, all the entries are quite close to one another. In addition, acceleration, braking, fuel economy, handling, all those sorts of dynamic considerations are actually fairly close in this pack as well. The mid-size sedan segment is probably the best value going on in the United States right now, because in order to try and stay competitive in this segment, manufacturers are continuing to add features which only a few years ago were optional on luxury cars, and now you can find them standard on your average family sedan like this. I'm talking about things like Bluetooth integration with Bluetooth streaming, a backup camera, LED lamps integrated right here into the side view mirrors. The majority of Optima models you'll find on dealer lots will also include luxury features like power folding side view mirrors and keyless entry and keyless go. Things that were optional on many luxury vehicles until very recently, and in fact, actually features that you still can't find on certain luxury cars. Although the Optima slots between the Camry and the Accord in terms of overall size, this does have a sleeker look to it. It actually is the same sort of thing that's going on in the Fusion, the Chrysler 200, and even perhaps the Subaru Legacy. Every entry in this segment is trying to go for a sexy side profile while still being a four-door sedan, and that's definitely what's going on here. You can see that Kia has extended this chrome strip right over here on top of the trunk lid, and they've actually squashed the rear end down a little bit. That means that rear headroom in this is actually more limited than you'll find in the Camry or the Accord, but it is a little bit better than the Fusion or the Chrysler 200. This general design reminds me an awful lot of the Audi A7, and overall this four-door coupe design is a little bit better executed than we find in the Ford Fusion or the Chrysler 200. Now, one thing you'll note about this look is that to give it this aggressive style right here, they've had to actually raise the sheet metal up, which means we get less window going on in the back than you'll find in the Honda Accord. The Accord has that very traditional large greenhouse, low belt line look, which makes it easier for kids to see out the back windows. It'll be a little bit more difficult in the Optima, but it is a little bit more stylish. Out back, we have a design that's a little bit more aggressive than your average family sedan, a little bit more expressive as well. We have these optional LED tail lamps back here, a small integrated spoiler on top of the trunk lid, dual exhaust tips. One exhaust tip is standard. If you get the 2-liter turbo, then you get these twin tips and some extra treatment down there on the bottom of the bumper. Kia is perhaps one of the biggest social climbers since Cinderella. Over the past 20 years, Kia has gone from a brand selling truly terrible cars that only sold on price to cars that now sell on value, and there is a really big difference between those two things. The Kia Optima is not the least expensive vehicle in its segment, but it is arguably one of the best values. Under the hood, the most popular engine is still a 2.4-liter four-cylinder engine. It produces 185 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. It's pretty comparable to everybody else's base engine out there. The 2.4-liter engine is mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission, sending power to the front wheels only. All-wheel drive is not available in the Optima in any model. The up-level engine is this 2-liter turbocharged direct injection engine, producing 245 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Now, you may notice that's a little bit less horsepower than we had in the last generation Kia Optima. Even so, this model is actually a little bit faster 0 to 60 because this engine produces its power in a more usable manner than the last generation engine. Specifically, all 260 pound-feet of torque are available from 1,350 RPM up to 4,000 RPM. That's a pretty big difference between the last generation engine. Like the 2.4-liter engine, the 2-liter turbo is mated to a 6-speed automatic, sending power right here to the front wheels. Also new for 2016 is a brand new 1.6-liter turbocharged engine. Now, interestingly enough, that engine is mated to a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. It's very similar to what we see in the Hyundai Sonata. The 1.6-liter turbo engine is the most fuel efficient in the Optima, and it will give you 28 miles per gallon city, 39 highway, and 32 combined. Interestingly enough, that is quite similar to what we see in the 2016 Honda Accord in its base engine. The model that we're testing right here ended up at 25 miles per gallon combined. This may sound like an odd thing to comment on, but most turbocharged engines are intercooled, and this is intercooled as well. But where Kia chose to put the intercooler is kind of an interesting location. It's actually right back here next to the engine radiator. So the engine radiator is over here, and then the intercooler is right here in the front of the vehicle. That's different than a lot of cars out there. A lot of cars actually put them right down here lower in the front bumper, very close to the front of the vehicle. So if you were in a minor fender bender, you could actually end up damaging your intercooler. Also, rocks kicked up on the road can end up piercing that intercooler as well. It's actually a little bit more protected right back here under the engine compartment. I really like that as far as the design goes. The switch from selling on low price to selling on value is really obvious in the seating in the Optima, because even the base LX model has a power driver seat with a two-way adjustable lumbar support, and that's not something you find in many of the options in this segment. A lot of the options out there skip, especially the power lumbar support in base models. Our model even has a four-way adjustable lumbar support, which allows you to change the height of the lumbar in the seat, making it more comfortable for shorter or taller drivers. We also have a tilt telescopic steering column and the available 2-position memory in our model. Because the Optima has continually grown generation over generation, you'll notice I have an incredible amount of legroom back here. I have about 6 inches or so. That's definitely more than you'll find in your average mid-sized luxury car. In fact, you won't find this kind of legroom in the back until you step up to something like a short wheelbase BMW 7 Series. Now on the downside, headroom is a little bit limited, and it's all because of this coupe-like profile that we get. If I sit back in this seat, my head does touch the ceiling, which is a little bit different than the Toyota Camry or the Honda Accord, which have retained their very traditional upright profiles and better headroom in the rear. Now that said, this is a little bit better than the Fusion or the Chrysler 200, which really have an awful lot less headroom in the back. Due to the shape of the rear bench, if I scoot over here to the middle side, I have even less headroom, and I do have to crane my head to one side in order to sit in the middle seat. That's because the center seat in the Optima is a little bit higher off the ground and a little bit further forward than the outboard seats. When it comes to cargo capacity, the Optima has a trunk that's just under 16 cubic feet. Now that is right in line with the Camry and the Accord, but this has an interesting trick up its sleeve. We can actually put a 24-inch roller bag right like that in the back and still close the trunk lid. Now this is a little bit less practical than the Nissan Altima's trunk. We can still put a 24-inch roller bag in this position and still close the trunk lid, but it doesn't fit quite as easily as we see over there in the Nissan, and you can't line quite as many of them up across the back as you can in the Altima either. Still, this is more practical than you'll find especially in the Fusion, the Camry, or the Accord. The extra cargo area height also allows us to stack 2 roller bags in this position, something that you can't do in every entry out there. Now our particular model has the optional Harman Kardon sound system, which has a subwoofer right back there, which does mean that we can't push these bags right over there into the middle because that subwoofer is taking up some of the trunk space. Thanks to the generous dimensions that we get back here in the trunk, the fact that the up-level models also have a compact spare tire instead of just a can of Fix-A-Flat, and we have a helper handle to help close the trunk lid, I'm going to give this 10 out of 10 points when it comes to my exclusive trunk comfort index. As we take a look around the interior, keep in mind that we are in the SXL model, so we have things available in this vehicle that we don't find in the base trims, like that large panoramic sunroof and these very well integrated window shades that are actually part of the doors themselves. You'll also notice that the door trim is actually upgraded in this particular model as well. Up front, both the driver and the front passenger have height adjustable seat belts, and our up-level model also has this very soft quilted Nappa leather. Now Nappa is a grade of leather, not a brand of leather, so this just means that this leather is very soft. The front doors in our particular model do have the upgraded trim, so we have the soft touch injection molded plastic up top that has been sewed with a sewing machine to give you this stitching pattern right here, soft touch portion in the middle that matches the leather, and then a soft touch armrest right there. You will find harder plastics lower on the door, where we do find that bottle holder right there and the speaker grill on the front doors. The dashboard design is fairly upright, and the stitching design continues right over from the door onto the dashboard. You will find speaker grills up there on the corner of the dashboard and in the center of the dashboard, again because ours does have that Harman Kardon sound system with surround sound logic. We have a moderately sized glove compartment right here. It is a bin arrangement, easily able to accommodate tablet-sized computers. The plastics do get harder as we go lower, as you'd expect in any vehicle in this category. So these are all hard touch plastics below this particular trim line, soft touch plastics generally above that. We do have this metallic effect strip that runs across the dashboard. In our particular model, you will find faux wood trim in certain versions of the Optima. Moving over to the center of the dashboard, again we have that center channel speaker right up here in the center. You'll notice that the defogger vents are very well hidden inside this cabin. Below that we have the touchscreen infotainment system in our SXL model. Not all models have this particular system, but actually the majority of the Optimas you'll see on dealer lots are likely to. They may or may not have the navigation, they will have this larger screen. This Kia software package has been used in a variety of other Kia models. So if you want to know more about this particular system, go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen. You'll be taken on over to a dedicated review on UVO. We have two large air vents right here, hazard light button in the middle, and the keyless go button over here on the hard plastic portion of the dashboard. Below the air vents are where we have the physical buttons for that infotainment and navigation system. We have direct access buttons to things like our radio, media, phone, mapping, UVO, setup, etc. Power and volume knob right over here, and the file knob right over here we click to enter. Our model has the dual zone climate control, which is not standard, but the vast majority of models you'll see on lots will have this. Below the climate controls, we have a storage cubby right there with a sliding lid, 12-volt power outlet right over there, auxiliary input, USB input. We no longer have to use that funky Kia-specific cable. We just plug our device right there with the USB cable. And then we have optional Qi charging in our particular model. This whole compartment does have a Qi mat underneath it, so if your device fits in there, it can wirelessly charge if it supports it. Zooming out from that, we have a fairly traditional console shifter. Drive is all the way down, manual mode over to the left, up for up, and down for down. On the right side of that, we have a small square storage cubby, and then behind that, we have two very large cup holders. Next to the cup holders, we find some buttons that are actually quite unique to the Optima in this category. We have this heated steering wheel, which is available only in a few vehicles in this segment. Drive mode selection allows us to choose between sport, normal, and eco modes that affects the way the transmission and engine behave. We have our heated and ventilated seat controls, our electric parking brake, and the auto brake hold. What auto brake hold allows us to do is it allows us to have the transmission in drive, auto brake hold enabled, and actually you can see my foot's on the brake right there. I'll take my foot off the brake, no foot's on the pedal, and we're not moving anywhere. That means that you don't have to have your foot on the pedal at stoplights. Behind that, we have a softly padded center armrest, and we open that up to reveal a relatively large storage cubby. We have a USB charge port right there inside, and enough room for wallets, cameras, that sort of thing. On the driver's side, we have this attractive 4-dial instrument cluster with a tachometer and engine temperature on the left, fuel gauge and speedometer on the right. A color multifunction display is standard in all models of the Optima, but lower end models actually get a slightly smaller screen. The screen is controlled via this button and toggle on the steering wheel. We get this page change button right here, which changes between pages, and then we use this toggle to actually change entries and then OK to enter. Using this screen, we can adjust things like our driving assistance systems, our adaptive cruise control, autonomous braking, forward collision warning. We can adjust how those systems behave. We can change our light settings, sound settings, convenience settings, etc. This display will also give you your typical trip computer information, distance to empty, trip A, trip B, etc. Digital speedometer right there, our next turn instructions or a compass depending on whether or not we have a navigation destination enabled in this system. You can also see our active safety systems in this vehicle, lane departure warning, radar adaptive cruise control, etc. We can also get audio system information as well as media information depending on exactly what device is playing in the system. So if I change over to our media device, we'll get information right there on our iPod. We also have the ability to check our tire pressure as well as set service intervals and have the vehicle remind us of that. One of the biggest changes you'll see in this interior is this all-new steering wheel design. It is a very, very attractive and very comfortable steering wheel, very reminiscent of certain Volkswagen and Audi wheels. We have very aggressive sport grips right up top, on the sides right here, more sport bump outs on the bottom, and then we actually have a flat bottom to the steering wheel. So you notice this is not round like some steering wheels that Kia has used in the past. We have shift paddles on the back of our steering wheel, up on the right, down on the left. On the left side of the steering wheel, we have our cruise control buttons. Remember, we do have radar adaptive cruise control, so we have distance, cruise, set, and cancel right over here. Dedicated phone hang-up and pickup buttons, volume up, down, mute, voice command button, mode button for that infotainment system, and then track forward and backward. For 2016, Kia has decided to make the Optima one of the sportier entries in this segment. So they went back to the drawing board and redesigned the suspension and the steering systems in this vehicle to make it feel a little bit more engaging. You should know that like every midsize sedan out there, tire sizes do increase as you go from the base model on up to the top end trims. But in the Optima, a few other things change as well, namely this steering rack. So we actually get a completely different steering system in the base models versus the SX and SXL model that we're driving right here. All Optimas use an electric power steering system, but this one actually uses an electric steering system that's actually located on the steering rack itself, under the hood, not right here in the steering column. When you locate the electric power steering unit on the steering rack itself, it allows them to actually put a little bit more feedback back into the steering wheel, so we get a little bit more road feel in this model than we get in the low-end trims. Even though this engine has lost a little bit of power versus 2015, it actually goes from 0 to 60 faster than the 2015 model. That's thanks to a more advantageous torque and horsepower curve. 5.9 seconds is what it took this car to go from 0 to 60, which is only 1/10 slower than the Chrysler 200 V6, which is one of the fastest entries in this segment thanks to its 9-speed automatic transmission. This is only a half second slower than something like an Acura TLX with its V6 as well. Likewise, braking is very good in this vehicle. I'm going to give it an A. We stopped from 60 to 0 in 124 feet, which is about 15 to 20 feet shorter than many of the competition in this segment. Most recently, the 2016 Honda Accord took about 10 feet longer than this model to stop. Now again, we are in the model with the widest tires because we are in the top end trim. So as you go down the scale, the tires get narrower and those braking distances do get longer. Fade resistance in this vehicle is very good, even though this is not as light as some of the entries out there like the Accord or the Optima. When it comes to handling, again, tires play an important role, but I'm going to give this particular version an A. We get a decent amount of steering feel coming back from the front tires, just about the same as you'd get in a Honda Accord or even a Mazda 6. Now the Mazda 6 probably has the best feel in the segment, but the Optima is really not that far behind. Now on the downside, you should know that base versions of the Optima do get narrower tires than some of the competition. So right around the EX trim level of this particular vehicle, comparable competitors would be running 225 with tires, and Kia uses 215 with tires in the EX trim. That means you're going to get a little bit lower handling score, a little bit longer of a braking distance time in that particular vehicle. Some mid-size sedans end up feeling a little bit too floaty-boaty, and some of them can feel a little bit too firm. Certain versions of the Chrysler 200 especially, and the Ford Fusion, can feel a hair too firm for my tastes, but this is right in the middle. An interesting thing is that we get very little body roll in the Kia Optima, even though the suspension is not terribly firm. When it comes to engine noise, I'm going to give this an A-. The score came in at 70 decibels, which is actually very, very good for this segment. It's among the best. However, we get more engine noise in the cabin than we do in some of the competition, most notably the Accord or the Optima. This does have a direct injection turbocharged engine, and there's a decent amount of injector noise. Now on the flip side, road noise and wind noise are very, very well controlled in this cabin. When it comes to the score for fuel economy, I'm going to have to give this a B-, because even though this does get impressive fuel economy for a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, and there is the Eco trim, which will give you 32 miles per gallon average, most versions of the Optima will actually get lower fuel economy than you'll find in the Accord, the Optima, or several of the other options out there. The last time we drove the Optima or the Accord, we were getting about 32 miles per gallon on average with the base engine and base transmission. And in the Optima, you do have to choose that Eco version in order to get that same kind of fuel economy. The biggest difference you'll notice is that in the Optima and the Accord, you don't really give up that much in terms of the handling in order to get that optimum fuel economy. And over here in the Optima, you do have to give up a little, because that Eco version, even though I do really like the way its engine and transmission shift, it does end up with relatively narrow tires that are low rolling resistance to help you get that high fuel economy, and that's just not required in the Nissan Altima or the Honda Accord. In terms of overall driving dynamics, I'm going to place this one notch below the Chrysler 200 and the Ford Fusion, because those vehicles are available with all-wheel drive, and that really does help improve the driving dynamics. Now when you get the front-wheel drive version of the Chrysler 200 or the Ford Fusion, I would actually say they're just about equal to the Kia Optima. In terms of front-wheel drive dynamics, I would put the Honda Accord Sport and the Mazda 6 just one small notch above the Kia Optima in a segment that's this large and this competitive. Being in third place when you're comparing yourselves to entries like the Mazda 6 or the Honda Accord Sport or even the all-wheel drive competition is a very good place to be. As I said, there was a time where Kia sold entirely on price, and their models were generally some of the cheapest in each category. But that's not the case anymore. The LX model starts at $21,840. It's the least expensive Optima on sale in the US. Instead of going for the lowest price, Kia has gone for one of the best values, because the LX model for a base model is incredibly well equipped. We get Bluetooth, cruise control, keyless entry, power driver seat with two-way adjustable lumbar support, and a 60/40 folding rear seat. Now it may sound strange to comment on that 60/40 folding rear seat, but that's something that you don't get in a base Honda Accord, for example, which is actually more expensive than the LX. Now perhaps the best base value in this segment is the Subaru Legacy, because it does come with standard all-wheel drive, something that's not available in this model and something that you can only get in expensive versions of the Chrysler 200 or the Ford Fusion. That does add a decent amount of value to that base Legacy. On the flip side, however, Subaru has really had to decontent the Legacy's interior in order to give you that low starting price. So things don't seem nearly as premium as we get even in the base model of this Kia Optima, and you don't find all the same kind of features and gadgets that you do in the base model of the Optima either. You also don't find the long warranty that we get in Kia and Hyundai models in the United States. The Optima EX is likely to be one of the most popular models. It's $24,890. And it is probably one of the best values in this mid-size sedan segment, and probably one of the best values in general available in the US at this point. It's all down to the kind of content that Kia jams on the inside. We get extra USB ports, sound control glass on the side windows. That's something you don't normally find until you get into luxury vehicles. 2-zone automatic climate control, keyless go, leather seating, 4-way adjustable lumbar support for the driver, heated seats, and a heated steering wheel. Again, something you don't normally find on mass market cars. Those power folding mirrors, the LED tail lamps in the back. We also get some unique wheels and the ability to add a few more options to the Optima if you so choose. That $24,890 price is the big key here, because for that same price, you won't find things like leather seating, the 4-way adjustable lumbar support. You certainly won't find heated steering wheels in most of the competition in this segment. A lot of those options are not easy to find in general in the mid-size sedan segment, and finding them at $24,890 is actually pretty rare. Now, slotting between the two models we've just talked about is the brand new Eco model with its 1.6-liter turbocharged engine. That is the model that will give you over 30 miles per gallon average fuel economy. And interestingly enough, that's the model that will compete fuel economy-wise with the average entry of the Honda Accord. The average Kia Optima with its 2.4-liter base engine and the 6-speed automatic transmission will be about 4 miles per gallon below something like a Nissan Altima or the Honda Accord, because they do use continuously variable transmissions. They're not quite as exciting to drive, but they will give you better fuel economy than the Optima. Instead of using a CVT in the Optima, Kia decided to use a dual clutch transmission under the hood of the Eco version of this Optima. That means that in terms of driving dynamics and driving engagement, the Optima Eco and the Sonata Eco, which use a very similar engine and transmission between the two, are actually going to be my choice in this segment. Now, remember what I said about mid-size sedans trying to be everything for everyone? That's exactly what the SX and SXL trims of the Optima are trying to be. But it's not unique to Kia, because Honda has one over there in the Honda Accord. We have the Chrysler 200C, the Ford Fusion Titanium, etc. This end of the segment is basically upgrading your average family sedan to a luxury or near luxury experience. The SX starts at $29,690, and there are options available. Now, basically all the options that are available in the SX model, plus a little bit more, are standard in the SXL, which is what we're taking a look at here. And the SXL is $35,790. There are essentially no options available on this SXL. Standard on SX and SXL are the bi-xenon steering headlamps that we find in this particular model. You can also get optional automatic high beams. We also have the twin exhaust tips that you see down there, because we do have the standard 2-liter turbocharged engine. We also get wider tires all the way around and a spare tire in the trunk instead of the Can Fix-A-Flat. From this point on, the options list in the SX is actually fairly easy to understand because things are bundled in packages, but the list of options does get very, very extensive, and the list of standard features on the SXL likewise is very extensive. We get things like the Harman Kardon 630-watt sound system with 10 speakers and the subwoofer. That's normally something you don't find on mass market vehicles. Generally, Harman Kardon sound systems are found in more expensive near luxury or luxury type cars. We also get Kia's Radar adaptive cruise control system, which is a full speed range system. It's also one of the smoother ones on the market, so this will take you to a complete stop in traffic and go again. We also get auto brake hold, the 360-degree camera, which you generally only see in vehicles like Infinitis, cross traffic alert, lane departure warning, collision auto braking, which is similar to Acura's auto braking system, or the new auto braking system we see on the 2016 Honda Accord. We also have heated seats in the rear and an infotainment and navigation system that will allow you to enter entries while you're in motion, and it will also feature Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support very soon. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto will be available in the Optima in a few months via a software update. Android Auto and CarPlay are already available in the Hyundai Sonata and the Honda Accord, so if you're looking at those models on the dealer lot, they'll do it right from the lot. This model, you'll have to buy it and then wait a few months for that software update. The SX and SXL models are interesting because this segment is really starting to encroach on near luxury vehicles like the Lincoln MKZ and the Acura TLX, perhaps even the Lexus ES 350. Many of the things that we're generally willing to pay extra for on those luxury vehicles, you actually get in the SXL model that we're driving here at around $35,000. This ends up being approximately $6,000 less expensive than a comparably equipped Lincoln MKZ or Acura TLX. It's about $10,000 less than a Lexus ES350. The MKZ is a pretty easy comparison because it's about the same size as this vehicle and it also has a 2-liter turbocharged engine under the hood. Now, of course, you can't get all-wheel drive in the MKZ, you can't get that in the Optima, and we do have some nicer interior parts in basically every luxury competitor to this. So we do have hard plastics down here lower in the dashboard. You wouldn't find those in your average luxury option. However, we do have things in this interior that you would normally find in a luxury interior, like this after-stitched injection molded dashboard that has a leather appearance to it, this very attractive leather steering wheel with the shift paddles on the back, flat bottom on the bottom, the radar adaptive cruise control, the fact that this seat is heated and ventilated, and the steering wheel is of course heated as well. We also have the auto brake hold and the 360-degree camera, which you don't find in many of those near luxury sedans, especially the MKZ or the TLX. Now in the MKZ we do get real wood trim, and you won't find that in the Kia Optima, but again this is about $6,000 less expensive. The handling is a hair better in the MKZ, and I think the ride is a little bit more polished in the MKZ as well, but the difference is actually quite small. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the Optima is objectively a better car than the MKZ, the ES300, or the TLX, but I will say that this is a better value than the Lincoln, the Acura, or that Lexus. And that value is exactly why my opinion has changed on the 2016 Optima. At the launch event over in Aspen, Colorado, I was a little torn, and I said that it was kind of a toss-up for me between the 2016 Accord and the 2016 Optima. But I've actually changed my mind, and I'm going to say that the Optima is actually my top pick this calendar year. The value is excellent at the high end of the spectrum and at the mid end of the spectrum. That EX is an incredible buy in this particular segment at the moment. Now, the fuel economy in this is not quite as high as we find in the Honda Accord, but I think that the overall look of it is more attractive. The interior is a little bit more comfortable and more attractive than the Accord as well. And by the time you get up to this top-end model, I think the value is definitely there for the Optima over the Accord. Now, because my last top pick in this particular segment was a hybrid, I think we're going to have to see what the 2016 calendar year brings us, because Honda should be releasing a brand new Honda Accord hybrid, and we should see the Kia Optima hybrid right around the same time as well. Now, we know what to expect out of the Kia Optima hybrid, because it should be using basically the same hybrid drivetrain that we see in the Hyundai Sonata hybrid. You can actually check out that review on my channel, jammed right here under the Kia Optima's hood. Over there on the Honda Accord side, things actually could change a little bit more. We expect it to be very similar to the last generation Honda Accord hybrid with a few incremental improvements, but we really don't know for sure yet. Now, on the subject of the Kia Optima hybrid, my main concern would be that Kia may choose to limit some options. If you take a look at that 1.6-liter Eco model in the Optima, you will notice that you cannot get leather seats on that interior. You also can't get some of the luxury features that we get in the EX model in that Eco trim. That is a little bit different than the Hyundai Sonata Eco, which uses very similar engine and transmission under the hood. Over there in the Sonata, you can get leather in the Eco model. You can't over here. So we don't really know what Kia is going to do with the hybrid model. Will Kia allow you to have the SXL type trim level that we see in this particular model with the hybrid drivetrain under the hood? If Kia does that, then that would be my top pick overall. If Kia doesn't, then I'll have to decide later. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2016 Kia Optima. Be sure and check out those related videos down there at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and click that subscribe button down there if you haven't already done so. Go ahead and let me know what you think about the 2016 Kia Optima, and let me know what you think about the Kia brand in general down there in the comments section below. I'll see you next week.